Hey guys, Ed from Paranormal Inc. Ohio, back at it again with another podcast episode. Tonight's podcast episode is going to be, yes, another listener's experience with the paranormal. I told you guys I was going to continue to do this, and I want to give a huge shout out to Paula Cooper, who follows us on Paranormal Inc. Ohio. She saw the post that I put on there about if you guys want me to tell the story or if you want to be on the podcast. And she sent me a story and she goes, "Here, tell my story." So, I'm going to tell her story. I want to thank Paula again so much for sending us this story and to be told, and I'm going to go ahead and tell you. Now, the story is exactly how she wrote it, because this was her experience, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to read it just like it says. I suppose I was born with a gift. I was born on Halloween 1966, of course. This story was told to me by my mother and my grandmother. They told me it's the best birthday in the world. I was born a month and a half early. I only weighed 6 pounds, 1 ounce. After I was born, they took me, and my mother didn't get to see me before her brother. David came in and said, "We have a little witch in the family." My mother said that she burst into tears because, as I said, they took me away immediately, and she thought there was something wrong with me. She said she hadn't put together what day it was. My Uncle David and I were very close. She said that he had brought all his friends over to show me off. My mother just recently told me this. One weekend, my mother, my dad, and my Uncle David went to spend the day at the river. My dad and my uncle became close after my dad came home from Vietnam. I was born while he was over there in Vietnam. My dad challenged my uncle to a swimming race to the other side of the river. My mom doesn't know exactly what happened. While they were swimming back, my Uncle David had started to drown. My dad was trying to save him. They both went under. That's when my mother realized what was happening. She doesn't swim, and no one was helping. She had to get in the car with me in tow and drive to get help. When she got back, they had gotten my dad out of the water. She said that my dad was blue and they had pronounced him dead. She wasn't having it, and essentially she made them give him CPR, and he lived. They had to drag the river to find my uncle. They found him 2 days later. The hook they dragged him with had caught on his belt loop of his jeans. He was only 16 years old. They never told my grandmother that they had to drag for him. I was 18 months old when this happened. They never told me that he had passed. My mother told me that I continued to play with him. One day they went to put flowers on his grave, and I went playing around the headstones. When they were ready to go, my mother called me to come on. She said I looked at her, put my finger to my lips, and said, "Shh, Uncle David is looking for me." Apparently, I was running around playing hide and seek with him. My mother told me that she thought she was going to have to take me to a psychiatrist. She didn't, because after a year, I stopped playing with him. My mother told me a few months ago that she and my uncle were driving across a bridge, and he turned, looked at her, and said, "That must be a horrible way to die." The reason she even told me this was my grandmother used to write notes on things that she wanted the family to know when she passed away. I was going through my Uncle Bill and my grandmother's albums and found one of her gospel albums where she had written a letter to the family. She talked about my Uncle David in a conversation she and him had a few days before he had passed away. I took it to my mom and asked her, did Uncle David know he was going to die? She also told me that she still remembers the last thing he ate that day, which was a grape, knee-high, and a candy bar called a 7-Up bar. It was like a box of chocolates in a candy bar form. Fast forward to 1979. My sister and I would spend alternating summers in either Ohio or Alabama. Dad is from Steubenville, and Mom's from Florence. This year, it was the summer we spent in Alabama. My Uncle Bill and I would stay up and watch scary movies. My uncle was sick. He had stage 4 cancer. So I'm very grateful that I got to spend the summer with him before he passed away. This one night/morning, we were watching some scary B movies. He's laying on the couch to my left. I'm sitting in a comfy chair. And the door to come into the house is on my right. It was a small area in the living room. Well, there was a knock at the door. I look at him and asked if he was going to answer it or if he wanted me to answer it. He looks at me and says, "No, I'm not going to answer it, but yeah, you can go ahead and answer it." I get up and open the door. No one was there. I looked at him. He was watching. I closed the door and then went and sat on the floor next to him. He had a look of knowing on his face. So I asked, "You knew no one was going to be there, didn't you?" He just nodded his head and went back to watching the movie. I didn't press the subject. I never asked him again. And he passed away in January. Following the summer I got to spend with him. As people do after a funeral, a bunch of the family had gathered in my grandmother's kitchen and were reminiscing. I told the story I just told you, and my grandmother told us that it was my Uncle David that he saw. Since my Uncle David passed, anytime anyone in the family was going to pass away, there would be a knock on my grandmother's front door. This is why my Uncle Bill didn't want to answer the door. He did know that there would be no one there. And after being told about the knock, I start replaying it in my mind. What I didn't even remember until I started to replay it back in my head was that I never heard the old, heavy storm door open. That is before the regular door. So I figured that my uncle must have known that my Uncle David had come to let him know that it was soon going to be his time to pass. I personally love this story. I believe that loved ones come back from the other side to usher you in to the other side. I believe they do that out of the love that they have for us. They know how scary it is because it's already happened to them, and they don't want us to go through that as well. I remember I watched my uncle pass away, and we was all really close to his nickname was Bones. We was all real close to Bones, and he had looked up. He was dying of liver cancer, and he was a horrible alcoholic. And he looked up before he passed away, and his son, my cousin, and I were in the room, and he just said, "Mom." And then he passed away. Like, he saw Grandma. And my grandmother had passed away years before that. I believe that people, loved ones do come. I also believe that if you're going the other direction, that they come to you as well. I had another uncle who was a very, very evil man. And when he passed away, he all of a sudden just bursted out crying and screaming, and then he died. So yes, I believe loved ones do show up. I mean, there's so many, countless stories I could tell you from family members that were talking to somebody that wasn't there. So this story just intrigued me so much, and I'm so glad that Paula, thank you so much for sending this. It was such a great story of your paranormal experience. For one, I'm sorry for the passing of your uncles and everything, but I'm glad you was able to tell the story and have me tell the story on the podcast. So guys, that is it for tonight's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Tomorrow we are going to do another listener's experience with the paranormal. If you guys want to hear this again, it's always on every podcast format out there. You can follow us on that. You can go to paranormallinkohio.com. Follow us there. There you can go see some old ghost hunts. You can see some visual podcasts that I put together on there. And you can also look at our huge selection of crystals and sage bundles that we have for sale. We also have some jewelry to fit the crystals. You can also go to Paranormal Inc. Ohio group page. There we discuss some more in-depth things about the paranormal world. You can go from there and you can go to TikTok, Paranormal Inc. Ohio. There we put some more paranormal things that we do on there. You can go to Paranormal Inc. Ohio on YouTube. There I put a lot of visual podcasts on YouTube. Good news is I'm starting to do live podcasts. I'm going to start doing live podcasts. You could, if you want to see the podcast be recorded, you can go on Facebook to paranormalincohio.com on Saturday nights at 9 p.m. and you'll be able to see the live broadcast. Of course, I'll always put the episode on all podcast formats afterwards. So you guys, if you guys are not a visual, you want to just listen, you guys will always have that there. But I want to combine them both. Give my wife a huge shout out for giving me that idea. And so, I hope you guys liked tonight's episode. Remember, you'll hear from us tomorrow night, 10 p.m. as usual. Another listener experience with the paranormal. And if you guys out there have had experience with the paranormal, let me know. Get on Facebook, paranormalincohio.com. Find me on there. Send me a direct message. Tell me your story. If you want to be on the podcast, we'll get you on the podcast so you can tell your own story. If that's not what you want to just have me tell the story, send me the story. I'm more than happy to let that story be known. You can get a hold of me there. You can get a hold of me on the Facebook group page, Paranormal Inc. Ohio group. You pick those and just send them to me. I'll be so glad to have you on the podcast to say the episode myself. And I hope you guys have a great night. You'll hear from me again tomorrow night. Thanks. Bye, everyone.